Dear learners, welcome to the lecture on the Introduction to Visual Communication. I am Dr. Chitra, your program coordinator for BSc Visual Communication. And as you all know that we belong to the School of Journalism and New Media Studies, Tamil Nadu Open University. Today, the first unit is on nature, process and types of communication. That is what we are going to deal today. So, while introducing communication, what is communication? Communication is a much hyped word in a contemporary world, and it encompasses a multitude of experience, actions, and events, as well as a whole variety of happenings and meanings and technologies too. Communication regulates and shapes all human behavior. Communication is not only an act or a process, but also social and cultural togetherness. Therefore, it is very important to have clear understanding of the concepts of communication. Communication events may be categorized as meetings, conferences, or even procession. So, as student, you need to understand the basic definition of communication. Communication is nothing but it is sharing of your ideas, thoughts, or knowledge from one to another. For example, if I'm taking a class, I'm communicating a subject to you. So I'm sharing the knowledge which I have acquired so far to you to understand what is communication. So this is what communication is. So we tend to talk to each other. Sometimes we nod our head to say yes, to say no. This is also a communication. So you need to understand the different types of communication available. So to say the mass communication, that is what we are going to learn throughout this entire 3 years of program. The mass communication is that what uses the media such as newspaper, radio, video, and television to communicate to the masses. Interaction, interchange, transaction, dialogue, sharing, communion, and commonness are ideas that crop up in any attempt to define the term communication. The meaning of the communication, the English word communication is derived from the Latin noun communis, and the Latin verb is communicare, that means to make something common. So I speak English language now. So it is a common language. I'm communicating in English. So communicare means to make something common. Communication in its simplest sense can be considered as dreaming, talking with someone, arguing in a discussion, speaking in public, reading a newspaper, watching television. There are different kinds of communication in our everyday life. So while we just wake up from our bed, we used to think what we are going to do today. So we have a thought process. I'm going to do this from my 6 to 8, 8 to 10, 10 to 12. So something like that, we plan ourselves for the day. So it is a sort of communication. Later, we happen to speak to our parents or our children, and we used to say them, give them instruction what they have to do today. It is communication. And later on, we used to talk to our colleagues, or we used to talk over phone to someone to communicate something. So they are also communication. So communication is part of activity in our everyday life. We communicate every day with one another to share our ideas, thoughts, knowledge, everything, whatever we want to do. So definition, there are many definitions quoted by the communication researchers. They have defined communications differently. So communication is defined by various researchers and theorists in different concepts. Communication in Hindu concept is understood as Sadharnikaran, the term drawing from classical Hindu poetic has been introduced into the modern communication discipline. So I have here quoted the communication definition from different communication expert. Uh, Keith Davis, what he defines communication is a process of passing information and understanding from one person to another. For John Adair, it is communication is essentially the ability of one person to make contact with one another and make himself or herself to understand. For example, if I am conveying a content to you, I am making you to understand what is communication in this chapter. I mean, in this unit, in this lecture, I am making you to understand what is communication. So, likewise, John Adir also says that it is the ability of one person to make contact with another and make himself or herself to understand. For William Newman and Charles Summer, communication is an exchange of ideas, facts, emotions of two or more persons. Likewise, Peter Little also says communication is a process by which information is transmitted to individual or organization so that understanding response results. So, to Murphy, Hilbert, and Thomas, it is communication is a process of transmitting and receiving verbal and non-verbal messages. It is considered effective when it is achieving the desired response or action from the receiver. And to Lewis Allen, it is communication is the sum of all things one person does when he wanted to create understanding in the minds of another. It is a bridge of meaning. It involves a systemic and continuous process of telling, listening, and understanding. Different communication experts have defined communications differently, but the meaning are same. They tend to say that communication is transfer of ideas, thoughts, and knowledge. So they have defined in their own way of expression. It is also a form of communication. So we have something important in communication. There are 7 C's in communication, which we are going to see now one by one. First one is the clarity. For example, if I am communicating to you, I should convey the meaning in a clarified manner. If something is very clarity, I mean, which possesses the clarity, you can understand. I mean, you can at the receiver end, you can understand and receive the same message which I wanted to convey to you. So clarity is the communicator must be very clear about all the aspects of idea or the message, but also the purpose for which it has to be communicated. The selection, suitability, clarity in language and usage of the medium should be always clear. The signal of the encoded message must be carefully composed and transmitted well. So clarity in communication is something what we require to have as a communicator. So, and the next C is the completeness. Completeness is the effective communication which requires the completeness in the message that is to be delivered. A message needs to be organized appropriately that includes all the important ideas and its detail. For example, if I'm communicating to you something, I'm saying that you have to be here to the university by 9 o'clock morning. If I say it is 9 o'clock morning tomorrow, you take it as like tomorrow you need to come to here to the university by 9 o'clock. If I say that you need to come by 9 o'clock, you need to understand whether it is 9 in the morning or 9 in the night or 9 on the next day or 9 on the next week. So the information which I am going to give you should have the complete detail. That is what the completeness means. So completeness will give you the effective communication and it carries the complete message. If I'm giving an incomplete message, it will not be able to convey the information that I have to persuade to the receiver. And it creates the doubt in the receiver mind and it makes someone to feel confused to understand the meaning. So that is what the second C. The first one is the clarity, second one is the completeness. The third one is the coherence. Coherency leads to easy understanding, and relation and clarity are two main aspects of the coherence. Facts and figures need to be presented in an intelligent way. Smooth flow, lucidity, and the transition aspect should be given importance that the audience do not misinterpret or misunderstand the meaning. So coherency means the communication should be easily understandable and you should relate with some facts and figures so that the receiver can understand the message easily. If I'm saying today the temperature is too hot, if I'm saying the temperature is today is 32 degrees Celsius, you can understand what is 32 degrees Celsius of temperature, which means it is too hot. If I'm saying too hot, the temperature is too hot, you can even presume it as the temperature is 50 degrees centigrade. So if I say with a facts or a figure, it means I am giving a message with coherence. So the third C is the coherence, which means you have to give message with your facts and figure. And the fourth one is the conciseness. Conciseness refers to thought expressed in the fewest words, which will be more expressive and effective. The communicator must organize the message in such a way that every word is precise, clear, meaningful, and create interest to the receiver. Avoidance of unwanted and vague judgmental description will be a best communication. Here, what they mean is conciseness means you should limit your words. Instead of saying a word like blah 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 blah, I'm explaining things. You have to be precise and you have to be clear. You have to be short. That is what the conciseness means. The next C is credibility. Credibility is a good writing is always forceful and direct, that has a power to have a capacity to produce a reaction or desired effect. Clarity in communication brings about credibility because it ensures that others understand the message easily and quickly. A clear and direct approach makes it possible to achieve the principle of credibility and other essential form of communications correctness and completeness to add strength of the credibility and completeness in writing. So you need to have the correct information and complete information. I'm so going to say there is a huge traffic block in Chennai, which means I can imagine any place in Chennai. If I'm going to say it is in the GST road near Tambram or near airport, I can understand the meaning of the traffic that is happening right now at GST road. So the information need to be correct and complete when you have to communicate with credibility. Next C is the correctness. As the word itself say, it should be free from errors and it should be correct in detail so that the audience will not have any misunderstanding. They will have the perfect understanding of your communication. So accuracy in writing can be achieved by avoiding writing strikeovers, wrong spellings, faulty grammars, poor sentence formation. Everything you have to avoid when you are going for a written communication. When you are going to speak, you should also carry a correct message and you have to read it properly and you have to have the special tone of expression, grammar and the expression in your voice to have a better understanding. So if I'm going to communicate something to the children, I have to talk to them very softly and I have to approach them politely so that they make the thing to understand and I make them to follow the instructions. So the correctness need to be there in communication, which is the sixth C, and the seventh one is the continuity. Continuity means it is a jargon that need to be avoided for the better understanding. Uh, the jargon is a language of slang that is used in science, commerce, technology, trade, and profession to have a profession to explain certain process. Jargon to a common man is confusing and unclear, and usage of fewer words brings about community and the grace in writing. The effective good writer will have their own style and continuity of the subject till the conclusion. And a precise, correct, clear message is well maintained for continuity will reap the desired effect on the audience. So these are the 7 C's of communication one need to remember as a good communicator. So while introducing the communication, I'll just wrap up what are the things we have gone today. I have in this lecture we have understand what is communication, what is the definition for communication, the definition of communication by different communication experts, and we also have gone through what are the 7 C's in communication. So with this, I'm completing the first unit of introduction to communication subject. So let's meet in the second unit for the next class. Thank you.